we have, well, Japan hates boxing. I surely hope this is clickbait because I love boxing and I love Japan. So this is going to make me very sad if this is actually the case.
As possessing prejudice against former boxers. The prejudice is born out of a belief that retired fighters retain a willingness to use violence to solve problems, often coercing individual victims into getting what they want. I came across this term while researching the case of Naoya Inoue, a former boxer who was wrongfully put on death row for over 50 years. The video is linked down below. Allegedly, the police were infected with Yakuza, solely focusing upon Hakamada but no other suspects, therefore condemning him to his fate. But this took place in the late 1960s. Surely Yakuza doesn't still exist in Japanese society? Well, in this video, let's examine whether prejudice has persisted towards those practicing the sweet science in Japan. Please leave a like for the algorithm, let's get into this. From my research, Japan appears to have a confusing, often contradictory relationship with boxing. I thought the Yakuza prejudice was somewhat initially caused by the tidal wave of Yakuza criminal activity. Between 1958 and 1963, the number of Yakuza members rose by more than 150% to 184,000 individuals, with 5,200 Yakuza gangs operating at the time of Hakamada's case in 1966. It's no wonder the police were deeply paranoid and were likely wary of boxers being used as effective instruments for organised crime. And the release of the Yakuza-focused film, Branded to Kill, in 1967 would have done little to diminish anxiety. But did wider Japanese society deem boxing to be riddled with Yakuza influence? Well, it's hard to deliver an accurate picture, but Jiro Watanabe is a case in point. A popular boxer in the 1980s, Watanabe was highly skilled, winning 26 of his 28 bouts and holding the world super flyweight belt. Yet, beneath the surface, Watanabe had an extremely nasty side to him, being arrested for blackmail in August 1995, having threatened to beat some debtors to death, before being arrested again in January 1999 for giving a gun to a friend who was being prosecuted for murder. In 2004, he was charged with blackmail alongside a Yakuza head boss, Kenji Haga, before being fully rumbled in late 2012 for being part of a Yakuza trio. Unfortunately, Watanabe entirely adhered to the Yakuza being linked to organised crime and threatening violence to intimidate frequently. Since this scandal, several similar mob-based links have been seen in boxing, though not quite on the level of MMA. Therefore, it would be fair to say that many in Japan deem boxers as possibly retaining illicit ties. But this is where it gets confusing. In January 1968, a shonen manga magazine series was circulated named Ashita no Joe, translated as Tomorrow's Joe. By April 1970, the concept was being produced as an anime series illustrated by Tetsuya Chiba. The story followed a rough street kid called Yabuki Joe, who under the tutelage of former boxer turned alcoholic.
How much do you guys recommend this? Cause I've yet to check this out, but I love Hajime no Ippo.
Danpai managed to reach the summit of the boxing world. Boxing is portrayed as a vehicle to escape a life of crime, with Joe routinely adhering to strict discipline, resilience, and a moral code to offset poor life choices. Ironically, the Yakuza feature substantially in the series, but Joe's boxing is utilised to punish these mobsters, instead depicting boxers as hero-like saintly figures. However, did this view of boxers being morally pure seep into Japanese society? Well, Ashita no Joe was effectively described as the Bible for college students at the time, as Joe represented a problematic hero showcasing the struggle of lower class children and pupils. His trial and sacrifice to the sport of boxing reflected the resilience and will of Japan's people. The manga literally inspired a left-wing communist group to hijack a plane, shouting "We are tomorrow's Joe" in the process, underlining the catalyst for their revolutionary spirit. Upon the death of Yabuki Joe's nemesis Toru Rikishi, the editorial team literally received 10,000 letters from fans expressing sadness before 700 fans gathered to hold a funeral for the fictional character. placing a shrine with his face on overlooking a boxing ring. Although people were reading into the manga beyond the simple sweet science, I feel boxing was becoming intrinsically linked with positivity, graft and control, suggesting a widely positive impression amongst much of Japan, especially in the younger generation. Now you may be thinking, Alex, this was just a silly cartoon. How could it truly impact the perception of boxing? Well, there have been real examples of Ashita no Joe's doctrine being put into practice. Hironari Oshima became a member of the Yakuza after high school, ending up imprisoned at the Odawara Boys Institute. It was here that he turned to boxing as a way of escape, turning professional in 1997 and racking up 21 wins, 5 losses and 1 draw. Additionally, Tatsuki Kawasaki was a similar case, ditching a life of crime in the Yakuza for a pair of boxing gloves. He would fight professionally between 2000 and 2008, accumulating 22 wins and 5 losses while winning some domestic cups in his career.
Hate ads? Here's how to block them for good. The internet is so overrun with ads, it's barely usable.
These success stories contributed to the sense of boxing's positive impact, perhaps offsetting the rumblings of corruption and Yakuza influence to some degree. Anime series surrounding boxing, whether that be Ashita no Joe or the more recent Hajime no Ippo, always stress the dangers of the sport.
Nigga, please, that shit is not recent. It's just ongoing. It's just ongoing, like 1400 chapters in, bro. Jesus.
Not only in terms of long-term CTE and memory loss, but the possibility of untimely deaths always linger. Like Rikishi's demise post-fight, Japanese society are all too aware of the darker side of the sweet science. Hatred for something can indeed be born out of national trauma. In South Korea, the demise of Duk-koo Kim, Yo Sam Choi and Ki-suk Bae in a 40-year span has served to diminish both boxing participation and the number of shows hosted there. But what about Japan? After all, Tokyo has experienced the highest number of boxing-related deaths for years, and this will surely garner a dislike, if not hatred, amongst those close to the boxer and others witnessing the ordeal. For a more detailed analysis of the reasons behind this, please check out my video linked down below. Now, I'm no expert on this, but I believe many Japanese view the mortality issue through the bushido code lens. Ultimately, in line with samurai doctrine, a fighter must hold bravery, honor and personal loyalty above life itself. If you commit to something, you must do so 100%, whether that be a doctor, engineer or sportsman. You must give your all, so the death rate probably hasn't facilitated widespread hatred. For example, it's estimated that 30.9% of males watched martial arts, including boxing, in a 2017 study, which does remain a sizable number, but the fact that just 9.2% of Japanese people consider it their favourite sport, and with it not being included in the participation figures, it's likely that recent deaths of Kazuki Anaguchi and Teshin
I saw that fight. I saw that shit. I saw that fight live February 2nd. No, that was last year. That was December or January, something like that.
Wary of the sweet science. It's a common belief that boxing judging in Japan can be extremely dubious. Often, it appears that Japanese boxers receive favourable treatment, benefiting from generous scoring in tight bouts. In fact, in the 1990s, this trend reached the point at which famous Japanese sports commentator Joe Kazumi criticised the stupidity of hometown decisions, pointing to when Japanese journalists and boxing fans heavily criticised the Onizuka Tanosuke world title decision in 1992, despite the Japanese fighter winning. He literally stated, "Fans and journalists will abandon boxing if they find it is dirty," and this has continued to a degree to this day. Filipino boxer Renan Portes received an actual apology from his Japanese opponent, Keita Kurihara, after losing on points in Tokyo in July 2024. Japanese observers aren't ignorant or indifferent to these robberies happening in boxing. Notably, Japan's adherence to the Bushido Code is heavily predicated upon fairness and moral value, so it's unsurprising if many Japanese begin to resent a sport where unjust decisions are commonplace. But now for the elephant in the room. The man who seems to have breathed life back into boxing within Japan, Naoya Inoue. BoxRec's #1 current pound-for-pound fighter, Inoue is at the centre of a recent surge in boxing popularity in Japan, combining quickness, precision and unyielding intensity. He really is something special, and his 28-0 record is testament to that.
28-0, 25 knockouts?
Exactly in Japan. Well, viewership is perhaps a solid indication. His fight against the Filipino Nonito Donaire drew between 6.5 million and 8.7 million viewers in the Kanto region alone, which is very high when considering the overall population is just above 40 million. In his fight with Luis Neri, he packed out a 55,000-seater stadium, and the event drew more than $20 million, showcasing serious demand for witnessing the monster's skills firsthand. Aside from integrity, Inoue has chosen to remain in Japan to fight throughout his career, aside from 1 trip to the UK and 3 to the US. This appears largely due to the love and support he has there, contributing to the major financial payouts, allegedly making $2.5 million per fight now. He's therefore evidently popular, and I feel if he keeps succeeding against rated foreign opponents, the Japanese perception and willingness to participate in the sport will begin to spike as youngsters seek to emulate their hero. Overall, Japan's relationship with boxing is confusing and at times contradictory. Historically, the sport has been depicted as a modern avenue of showcasing the bushido code, whilst the contrasting opinion of former boxers being violent thugs simultaneously developed. While fighting Harada drew hundreds of thousands of thugs simultaneously developed, the contrasting opinion of former boxers being thousands of eyes and adoring fans to the sport, Ueno Hakamada found himself locked away in solitary confinement, largely due to the Bakusa Kazure trend, a potent symbol. Manga celebrates the virtues and discipline of boxing, yet Japanese spectators lament the corrupt decisions and Yakuza links. It really is hard to decipher the popular opinion on this fascinating sport. But now I'd like to hear what you guys think, especially if you have links to or are from Japan. Do the Japanese really hate boxing? Is it more of a love-hate relationship? Or am I just chatting absolute wasabi sauce for the sake of pumping out a mediocre video? Let me know down in the comments. I honestly find Japanese society incredibly fascinating and genuinely love watching their boxing bouts, so I'm curious to learn more generally. If you know of any subreddits which may be suitable for this discussion, please link the video there. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please consider liking and subscribing.
I will never miss a Naoya Inoue boxing card. I'm talking the whole card. All the fights we fired. That Anaguchi fight actually ended up being on that card. Of I think he fought Tapales, Marlon Tapales. Alright.